All right. You know that feeling that when your inner critic starts screaming in your ear, whenever you've decided to change course, that voice in your head, I call her Hilda, starts screaming at you and making you feel like you're a quitter or that you've just failed. That's the conversation I want to have today on Monday Morning Moxie, because there's a huge difference between failing and redeciding. So let me back up a little bit. First of all, if you don't know, I wrote a whole book about Hilda, the inner critic who lives in the back of your brain and tells you how much you suck. And Hilda has this deep seated need to make us feel really bad about any choices that we're making. And typically, she's really good at keeping us from starting something. But once we have started something, she's got new tricks up her sleeve to beat you up about changing your mind. And this idea that you're not allowed to change your mind or it's failing becomes this particular form of Hildaism that a lot of our clients face. But let me get back to talking about changing your mind. It's a really interesting conversation I had years ago with one of our incredible clients, Anna Billman. Anna lives in Sweden. So she's Swedish, her husband's Norwegian, and she's got a thing for languages. And one day she shared with us this really interesting linguistic distinction that happens in the translation of the phrase change your mind. Apparently in Swedish, and I don't know the actual words, and if I did, I wouldn't even try or attempt to say them on the internet. But in Swedish, the literal translation for whatever that phrase or word is similar to English, which is to change your mind, like to switch out your brain somehow. But in Norwegian, there's a word that very specifically talks about that same concept, but it literally means to redecide, like to decide again, to redecide. I don't know why, but it feels so much stronger. Like changing your mind sounds kind of flimsy to all of us impatiently ambitious entrepreneurs. But to redecide, I don't know, that just feels like a powerful active choice, like something where you have agency over the direction that you're taking. You're really selecting it very intentionally. I just love that. So we've been using the term redecide with all credit to Anna for years and years and years. And we recently had a client who found herself in this exact kind of situation. She had made a big decision and then new information became available, right? So you made a decision, this is the direction I'm going. And then as you get going on that, new direction comes up. I'm not going to share the details, but you totally get the gist where I've decided I'm going to do something. I'm decided I'm going to have this launch or host this event or write this book or follow through on this thing, whatever that thing is. But then new information, new situations, new circumstances pop up that you did not anticipate. And that made it challenging. And in this case, my client wanted to make a pivot, wanted to make a change. But she knew deep down it was absolutely the best possible choice for her, her life, her business, her sanity. It was what needed to happen. But Hilda was telling her a story about, well, if you change your mind, if you decide to pivot, if you move in this other direction, you are derailing everything you did before, and clearly you're failing. And here's the thing that's really frustrating about that is Hilda is like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You're damned if you don't get started. But then if you do get started, it is now a life sentence. You are stuck with it forever. I remember like growing up, I used to have the same thing too. Like if I decided to do something, I was committing to do it for the rest of time, no matter what came up. And that's what I was stuck with. And so I found myself making fewer commitments because I didn't want to marry every idea. And so I wouldn't take on a new idea, a new sport, a new activity, a new craft, because if I wasn't completely committed to it forever, I would be a failure. And it's this kind of thinking that Hilda tries to spin. She's spinning this narrative of failure because if I can convince you you're going to be a failure, then you're going to stick it out. And this is where it gets kind of tricky because Meredith and I, our whole business is about helping impatiently ambitious entrepreneurs actually follow through on what matters to them. But that doesn't mean sticking with something that isn't working for you anymore. In fact, I want to like really challenge you to think about this. We always know the difference between when we're giving up and quitting or we're redeciding. If we're being honest with ourselves, we always know whether or not we're wimping out or we're redeciding. Because second guessing, which is a normal part of doing anything that matters to you, is kind of rooted in that fear. It's rooted in that hesitation. It's got the what will people think and will this work? And I'm really scared and I'm really nervous and this could totally blow up in my face. And all of those things happen. But Hilda turns that into you're going to fail. Whereas redeciding is not that. It's not coming from a place of I'm second guessing myself. It's coming up from a place of I have new data. I have new information. I have some clarity. Or honestly, I realized I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to do that anymore is a completely great reason, completely legit reason to redecide and move in a different direction. If we're honest with ourselves, we always know the difference. We can always pause and ask ourselves, are we second guessing ourselves or am I redeciding? And we know whether or not it's coming from a place of fear or not. And what's interesting is when you feel bad, when you feel like you're failing because you're redeciding, even though you know it's the right choice. Again, in my client's case, she knew this was the right choice for her. Even though that was happening, there was all of this Hilda guilt and all of this Hilda second guessing that was bubbling up, even though there was new data, because you don't want to quit, you don't want to fail, and you especially don't want to change your mind publicly. So what if we change that narrative and decide to embrace this concept of redeciding? Thank you to all the Norwegians out there for this word. What if we decide that we reserve the right to redecide? We reserve the right to redecide as you're going through your life, as you're going through your business, as you're going through your workday, as you're going through whatever you got going on this particular week. I want you to reserve the right to redecide. As you get more information, you get to decide whether or not you want to continue or not. That's going to allow you to jump in with both feet, get things started, and see whether or not it's for you. Not second guessing and going, oh, this got hard, this got tricky, but actually pausing and being honest and real with yourself. Is this something I still want to do? Does this still fit? Based on this new information, is it still a go? And if it's not, you should feel free to redecide guilt-free. Once you have new information, you get to make new choices. That's just as simple as that. So you are allowed to redecide. I'm allowed to redecide. Everybody is allowed to redecide. You're allowed to adjust your course. There's nothing wrong with it. I know I'm being repetitive here, but I'm saying it because I need to make sure your Hilda hears it too. Hilda doesn't want us to find the easy path. Hilda wants to complicate this for us. She wants to make it incredibly hard, if not impossible, to be successful. And she also wants you to constantly feel safe, stuck and small and stifled in your comfy little comfort zone. And unfortunately, far too many of us are comfortable with the narrative that we are failures. I know you're not a failure. You're simply deciding how to move forward, and you reserve the right to redecide. So that's what I got for you this week for Monday Morning Moxie. Hopefully it's a quick little shove that you needed to move forward. Maybe it's a permission slip that you really needed this week to just feel a little bit better about how you're moving through all of these decisions right now. It's a very tricky year in business, a very tricky season in business, and we all need to have the permission slip to redecide. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, keep making things happen no matter what.